chapter 11. So I'm Elsa from Heilbronn. I will be teaching your class on 13th century music right now. I have been playing this music for almost 30 years now, which is a little scary. But this is the very first time I'm trying to teach about music instead of teaching the music directly. So if you have any corrections or questions, do let me know. I have very much stuff set up. We're going to listen on passing out handouts. This is the Cantigas de Santa Maria. This is the only troubadour, the female troubadour that we have survived in music. We have poetry. As we said before, there's lots more poetry than surviving in music. So this is Cecilia, and this is a German group called Cantigas on the album Amor. Alright. So I have handouts here. Here we've got this is the music we're listening to on the front, and on the back is where you can find the actual manuscripts and things that I'm talking about, and a couple secondary. Sorry about that. That's alright.
We didn't play sound for your class.
And then, as many of the music pieces as I could find, I asked my husband to make a couple copies to pass around, and he made 20 copies. So here you go. Take one, pass it on. They are not.
You take a spare for someone who can't be here?
Sure. I have 20 copies. I don't see 20 here. They're not in the order because he just snatched them out of my hand and ran off and copied them, which was so sweet, but they're not in order. Oh well. I'll hold it up for you.
They're collated and stapled though.
They're collated and stapled.
You can't complain.
Alright. Alright, and this one you do have to just pass around and look at. This is all the pictures of the composers and the theatricians that I could find. You can just pass that around and look at it. So this is the music we're listening to right now, this one here. It wasn't in color. I think this picture here, right here, is the one that goes in this place right here. So, I call this class Manuscripts, Motets, and Modes because it's nicely alliterative. Yeah. And also because this is the century, the 13th century, when we have lots of manuscript collections. Yay. Some really fabulous collections. Some you've probably heard of, like the Carmina Burana and the Cantigas de Santa Maria. So we'll talk about some of those. We also have some scraps of manuscripts that are really cool too. That's where we have Sumer's Acumen, that's just a little scrap. I think it's not in a whole big book. And then Motets. The big innovation in polyphony here is taking that chant that Mr. Samley was talking about that was slowed down, and they put improvised embellishments and putting a whole actual other tune with words. And
sometimes in another language.
Often in another language. And then they would put another tune with that, and sometimes another tune yet. But really mostly two tunes. So that would be called the double motet, is what that's called. So that was a huge innovation. And modes is kind of, they like to really organize in the Middle Ages. So you couldn't just play the music, you had to have rules about the music. You have lots of modes. I'm not going to get in a lot into the modes because this is not a theory class. They had rhythmic modes. In this century, they started writing about the rhythmic modes. And as they developed, the complexity of the polyphony, they also needed to advance the notation. And so modes is kind of, notation doesn't really alliterate though. It's like two. But
It's a good example.
it is the same tune, and this is one that it was actually recorded in the Notre Dame Cathedral.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the Notre Dame school, and yeah, because this was in the last class too. This is Perotino Perotinus. This is this piece here, Viderunt Omnes.
Oh, she's got copies.
Yeah, I tried. And you can see, there's 4 parts. Here's our top 3 lines going diddle-it, 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 and here's the note that the bottom part is singing. 1 note for the whole line, and then another note for the bottom line.
Oh, I see. That's great. I didn't have this. I didn't know where it was when we did it. Wow.
Yeah.
1 note. 3 parts that are moving and 1 note sitting there.
Yeah.
Oh
So-
yeah, and there's the silver day down there. Way down there.
Yeah.
That's a
so
lot of
this is
notes before you get to the
B,
second.
and then day for Viderunt, which is the first word of the chant. Okay, so while this is playing, I'll talk about what was going on briefly in the rest of the world in the 13th century, or the rest of Europe outside of music. There were lots of crusades. Lots and lots of crusades. The Magna Carta, 1215. Reform movements in the Catholic Church. We have St. Francis, St. Clare, and St. Thomas Aquinas. And in 1202, Leonardo of Pisa, better known as Fibonacci, published the Liber Abbaci, which argued for the use of Arabic numerals, which gradually took effect over the course of the century and was really influential in the music also because of the number 0. Because by the end of the century, that concept had sunk in, the 0, and that's when we first start having music theorists write about rests. Because before that, no rests.
I forgot to mention the 10th century Baghdadi Arabic treatise because I ran out of time. But they had, it was mostly having to do with rhythm. But,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this music is produced or preserved. Perotinus. We know about him because of the theoretician. The Anonymous Four is what they call him. Not to be confused with the really cool musical group Anonymous Four.
That named themselves after him.
Yes. But so he's preserved, the music is in, we know about him from Anonymous Four, the music is in the Magnus Liber, which is the big book, which is full of lots of music. And out of this grew the motets as they started putting more tunes. But we're going to skip ahead now and move on to the Minnesinger. So, Walter von der Vogelweide, one of the most famous Minnesinger. This is his most famous song, the Palestina Lied, in which he debates, like, really should we be fighting these crusades when everybody loves the Holy Land? We know the infidels love the Holy Land, the Jews love the Holy Land. He ends on a patriotic note anyway. I think it's just because he's writing in a Christian country and he can't really go against that. But also, as we were talking about earlier, we don't know how this was performed. We really have no idea, so I tried to find a very wide range of different ideas. This is a German medieval market rock band performing here. This is Corvus Corax.
Cool.
So, apparently the Palestina Lied has been picked up by a lot of rock groups, especially German rock groups.
Performing Palestina Lied Declaration.
Awesome. Cool.
This is the recessional.
There we go. Kind of just getting into the tune. Alright, so here's a picture of Walter here. This music we have from the Manessa, well, not the music, the words and the pictures we have from the Manessa Codex, which is 1305, so a little bit past, but the music is clearly much earlier. We have his music from even the early part of the 13th century. And this is what the word part of the Manuscript looks like right here. Isn't it fun? Yeah, I love this group. I saw them live when I was working in a medieval market in Germany 20 years ago. And you had all of the other female workers doing like belly dance stuff in front of them as they're playing with their bagpipes. I didn't bring a picture, but they are like, yeah, performing bare-chested with their kilts and they're really a trip to watch. So I forgot to ask, I also have much more music than we have time for. Do you want, and we can choose whether we want to like take it more slowly and have conversation, you want me to, or you want me to zip through the descriptions and cut off the music so we can finish on time. Do you have opinions? Start finishing on time? We've got a short over here. Okay. While that's still playing, one of the other famous Minnesingers is Neidhart. Here's Neidhart here. This is clearly a stage name. Neidhart means something like painful guy of the valley of Neidhart from Reuenfeld, painful guy of the valley of sorrows. This is really, and then his music, I don't know. So we have two basic types. We've got the winter songs and the summer songs, or the spring songs. And the winter songs are mostly mothers and daughters getting in fights, getting upset with each other. He's got a famous song where he talks about all the people that hate him. And then he's got his summer songs. They always talk about summer. This is all the way through everything, like the English music too. Spring is May. It's all May, right? Yeah. So,
In a real tennis class score, in April at Easter time is a trivial piece, but yes, most of it.
yeah.
Or just spring, generically.
So we have spring songs, and what was really revolutionary about Neidhart is that this is all the courtly music, right, is what was written down, and he's the first to really start including peasants in his music. I was going to sing a little song, but actually I bought a whole album from iTunes, and I listened to it on Amazon, and it turned out it was linked wrong on iTunes, and it was a completely different album to download. It's like,
Well, sing us Winter View, yeah.
I can't play it for you. Well, it's dramatic, but we'll get through it. So the song, I was just going to sing you the first Neidhart song that I learned, which is Wenn du nur ist ab dein Kraft. So winter, now your power is broken by May, who has stuck you with his spear. And then it goes on to talk about there's dancing on the meadows, and it says, men and women, you should look at each other in the eyes without shame. And also, young girls, you should remain unpromised.
Yeah, I remember that.
So, Winde, nu ist ab dein Kraft, wurden Gaben siegerhaft, seit der Mai seinen Schaft auf dir hat verstochen, gar besunder durch ein Wunder, solches Wunder ich vernahm. Mann und Frauen, ihr sollt schauen in den Auen ohne Scham, wie das Licht den Maienschar steht begleitend Purpurfahr. Junge Maid, das nehmet wahr, bleibet unversprochen. So, here we go. All right, and we'll move on to Carmina Burana, which is put together around 1230 is when the manuscript is from. It was found at a monastery in Bavaria. A lot of the music is 13th century, so while I kind of really wanted to play you into Verna Quando Sumus,
We all know that.
everyone is in the time. Yeah, hopefully you all know that one. That's really probably more 12th century, since that's really basically, I would think so. They'd say a lot of the music was 12th century, but it's based on a chant. I have it here anyway, we can play it at the end of this time. But instead I thought I would play for you a two-part song, Tempus Transit Gelidum. That is another spring song. And while that's going, I'll point out for you.
This has the news
This,
without the lines.
exactly. It does have the news. This is 1230. They had the manuscript. They had the notation with lines, but it's not written this way. This is these little squiggles on top. This is the notation. This is the news. So you can see you can't figure it out. And my mother reminded me, when we were learning this in the Synagogue of Singers, there was a time, like a little time when we didn't have the music. We have the music. People went through and found it from other manuscripts and tried to put it together so that you have some songs from this that you can perform. So we were trying to learn some, and we had just the words and not the music, and so we were taking notes, and our notes on the words ended up looking like this. Yes. This is not the song we're listening to. This is O Fortuna, the famous one that. So this is the Wheel of Fortune with people getting squashed.
Okay. Oh, it's Facet Ne Fasalgemont. Oh, I know that one. I see it. I can read it. Yeah.
Virgins. So these are kind of student songs. There's lots of drinking and lots of admiring virgins in these songs. I think weren't there some attempts at seduction in this song, Mommy?
I'm sorry?
Weren't there some attempts at seduction in the later verses of this song?
Very likely.
So I'm kind of, it's been a few years since I read it.
It would be a good Carmina Burana song if there wasn't some attempted seduction.
Well, there's that.
Or lots of vocals.
This is the Freiberg Spielleut playing the song. It's a German piece. Okay. So, at this point chronologically, mid-century, we've got a lot. I'm just going to mention the only surviving Trouveresse music that we have.
I didn't know we had one. Cool.
I have the music right here. I found it in my library, in my public library, in the Historical Anthology of Music by Women. I'm trying to learn it for you, and I couldn't find any recordings of it, so this is a project for us for the future to be able to perform this song. It's a dialogue. This was a common form, was we'll pose an ethical dilemma, and the two poets will write back and forth in poetry, answering the question. And in this case, the question is, there is a young man who loves me. I know he loves me, but he's way too shy and proper to make a declaration of love. Is it proper for me, as a woman, to let him know my feelings? So, I know.
Wow, it sounds like a letter written to dear Aunt.
I'll pass it around. You can see the music. There's a translation there, too.
Oh, Aubrey, of course.
Yeah. All right, so now we can go on to Sumereza Kuminin. And this is England. England does harmonies very differently from the rest of Europe at this point in time. England is using thirds and sixths in harmony, which is still considered discords everywhere else.
But they used different scales. They were discords.
Maybe. So here we have some words are coming in. It is also notable for being the first secular piece in English, but it still has some religious Latin text written underneath, and we don't know why. We don't know, was this like alternate text, or are they supposed to go together? We don't know. You can see here we've got, it is polyphony though, it's got this pes, the foot at the bottom, that's what's going down right now. And then it's also a round, or a rota is the official term at this point. And they've got these little red pluses in the music here so you can tell where the next part is supposed to come in. And we're listening right now to the Tulston Troubadours, whom if you go to Pemzik you will see them performing out on the streets. You can teach the kids, and you can get them all excited because it's talking about the cuckoo singing and the lamb bleating and the buck farting.
Wait, really?
Yes, really.
Yes, I've sung this, I just didn't catch that.
Buca vertes. They used to think it meant the buck was turning, but now the going theory is it means the buck is farting, and why that's a sign of spring, I don't really know.
I had no idea. They don't do that in my area. I know, I'll listen carefully though. The Catholic Children's Youth Choir, the youth choir sang this last year.
Yeah.
Ezra Pound did a film of this winters coming in loudly saying "God damn."
Oh, I love
I
that.
saw that. I haven't heard it. I saw the lyrics. It's really
Yeah. We sang all three of them in Collegiate in college, the two here with the Latin plus Ezra Pounds. Except he chickened out at the last minute and had to sing Ray 5 instead of that. Yeah.
All right. So while we're on this, we should start talking about theory. So we have some very famous theorists here that were famous for centuries afterwards. Johannes de Garlandia. And now I've read things that both said these were the guys, and no, these were not the actual guys. They just edited previous works or expanded on previous ideas. But since they were the guys whose names got attached to them going on, what you're going to hear. So Johannes de Garlandia, about 1260, edited De Mensurabili Musica, where he talked about the rhythmic modes. Because at this time, they'd started to, with the polyphony, you need to start having a way to note the rhythm as well. And what they came up with, the system they first came up was based on the Trinity and the perfection of the Trinity, which means that everything is divided into three. You have long notes, your longs, and your short notes, your breves, and you tell how long your short notes are going to be by the relation to them. And the mode, long, short, or short, long, but he had to come up with 7 or 8 of them because otherwise it wouldn't be a good pattern, even though they really only use 2 or 3 of them regularly. So here is, I tried to read this for you, for your benefit. Most motets were written in this notation anyway, though, even though it is a little confusing to read. Here is what he sounds like translated into English. In every ligated figure drawn with propriety and perfection, the penultimate note is a breve and the last note is a long. If there are 1 or more notes preceding, all are taken for a long. Every figure drawn with propriety and with perfection is equivalent to the opposite of figures with propriety. Does that make sense to anybody? Because that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Anyway, sometime a little bit later, Franco of Cologne, German in the mid-13th century, yes, wrote a somewhat more practical treatise on music notation called Ars Cantus Mensurabilis, where he had a nifty idea that instead of basing the length of the note purely contextually, you should change the shape of the note so that shape of the note would always be that same length. Yay! And musicians everywhere rejoiced. It still took a while to catch on, and the notation has changed a little bit since then, but this is the beginnings of music notation as we know it, where you don't have to just study. And then later, I'm just going to say, since we're just smushing the theory, we'll play some music later, but around 1290, Petrus de Cruz came up with the idea that if you were going to have that relative music based on, or the rhythm based on relative groupings, that it would be helpful to have some kind of notation in the music to let you know what groups were supposed to go together. And he started putting dots in between groups of notes, which would be the precursor to our bar lines. Another spiffy idea. But now, we're going to go back to Monophony. Here we have the Martin Courage, yes, which you performed so beautifully a couple years ago.
Yes.
So this is our first song cycle. This was found smushed in a book binding at the beginning of the last century. And you can see it's in here. It's got holes in it.
101 years ago, actually.
101 years ago. But this is the whole 7 songs here on this one page.
And one's got just lines and no notes.
And it's got the notes. And this is, they say this is the first song cycle. Every last line of this poem begins the next poem. They're really, really tight poetic structure. Really beautiful, haunting stuff. And it is all about a girl waiting by the sea for her lover. I kept waiting when they were performing. I kept waiting for the lover to come.
We think he never shows up.
Never shows up.
It's a heartbreaking song.
Can you hear that? Do you need to turn it up?
There's too much noise on.
corrections. We were talking earlier about where is the instrumental music. Here is the instrumental music. This is appended to, so we have the Manuscript du Roi, or the manuscript of the king, where there's a whole bunch of poetry, and the typical music and poetry songs, and at the end, there's like a dozen dances. This is it, yep, this is it right here. I don't know if this is one of the poetry pages and one of the dance pages, but anyway.
It's got both.
Okay.
It says a song, but it's got the instrumental stuff here. That's why you picked this page.
Okay. So this is the first time we have dance music written down. And again, we know that they must have been improvising and lengthening stuff out because you can't have a line of music this short and actually do a dance to it. You barely have time to get up there, right? And it was a long time after this before we had really more dances, I think, and especially another 150 years at least until they start writing down instructions on how to do the dances. But I think the liner notes it was 150 years, and then I'm like, wait a minute, we have other dances from this era. What are they talking about? I don't know. So
I see bar lines here.
does look like bar line. No, that's because they've got the sections. They've got
The open and closed.
the open and so the typical form of the open and close is you play through your section twice, and you've got one unfinished sounding ending, and then one that's the open ending, and then one that sounds more done here, closed ending, which is a stuff that's still pretty common today, actually. Right? Yeah.
It's totally typical restaurant piece.
Yes. Yes. This is not an SMP. This is just a dance, but we do have SMPs on this album. So this is from an album that's the whole album is just all the dances from this manuscript.
It is this dance. This is the one we're listening to.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Awesome. I did really well.
That's the closed one. It's the second one down.
Right.
This is dance. Close ending. Oops, I was supposed to go back up to that ending. Aha. I finally found it. Yes. Back up to closed.
Skip on
Yeah.
to the Cantigas de Santa Maria. Yay, Cantigas! So this is the jubilatories. This one, they have taken, this particular arrangement, they have taken that jazz sensibility to the max. They've got the long intro, they have every single instrument, and these are all handmade instruments.
Jubilatories. Oh,
This is the
makes
jubilatories,
sense.
yeah. So these are handmade instruments by the leader of the group, and every instrument gets a solo, improv solo. It's 8 minutes long though, so we can't do it all right now. But
That's probably more how they were doing it.
but I think that
from
probably
what we've
is,
read.
yeah. Because really,
Doesn't this one have like 14 verses anyway?
Hobo Potent Pair only has 5.
probably, okay.
But I only bothered with it.
Yeah, I'm playing this one because I like it, and I think it was the first one that I learned, even though there's
166.
166. Yeah, I think I was
That's a good one.
12.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. So,
That's the first one I learned, too.
so Cantigas. So this is the Cantigas de Santa Maria, about 1270 to 90. There are 420 songs in Galician Portuguese.
Woohoo.
And every 10th one is a hymn to the Virgin, but they are all about the Virgin Mary. What I really want to know, so these are miracles. They're stories of the miracles of the Virgin Mary. This one that we're listening to is about a man who was lamed for his sins. He realizes that's why he was lamed. He prays to the Virgin. He promises he will bring her some really nice wax if she heals him. So she does. And he's good to his word. He takes the wax to the shrine of the Virgin and delivers it there. And everyone is happy and praises the Virgin, and he is healed forever. There's also the wonderful one that you do in Salite about the stolen pork chop, where the pilgrims have a pork chop. There's pilgrims, they're stopping in on the way to their pilgrimage site. They buy a pork chop for dinner. Somebody steals it, makes off with it. So they pray, so they run to the shrine of the Virgin Mary. They pray, please, Virgin Mary, save our pork chop. And she listens. So they follow the signs. I don't know.
Well, they hear this thumping sound.
Oh, they hear it, right?
Yeah, and so they follow the thumping sound, and the pork chop is inside a chest where the meat has hidden it. It's jumping up and down inside the chest. And so when they open it, it jumps out and starts dancing on it.
Right.
Now you can't eat it because it's a miracle.
Right, so they still don't have their dinner. They're still hungry. So what I want to know is, were these as hilarious to them as they are to us, right? I mean, this is so funny.
I don't know. Seeing the Blessed Mother's face in a grilled cheese sandwich is serious to some, but amusing to others. So I guess people are people. That may be
Yeah.
true.
And things have not changed all that much because we're still seeing the face of the Virgin and the face of Jesus in our burgers and our grilled cheese sandwiches and our pork chops. So what's also really cool about this is, so these pictures here, this is some of the best iconography we have of instruments of the era. So they have these really beautiful pictures. So, and this is actually Cantiga 166 here. This is, I'm holding upside down. This is Greg Lindahl, a Stadian who put these all online, but unfortunately, straight black and white copies, and that's all there is online. All the other serious music sites still are referencing his postings of the cantigas, but they're all up, and you can get music for all of them online too.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
I fell in love with when they did the Ayrton song, and I'm like, I love this music. The Ayrton song, I'm like, yeah, whatever. But
You love the music, it's this.
I came out
Still
one
355.
which I was figuring out the proper pronunciation for, and it's in my solo records.
Oh, great. Ayrton stole one of the cantigas and said a new poem to it when he became a barony. Somebody had written a poem, and Robian looked at it and said, "That scans to a cantiga, let's do this tune."
Robian did a great job with it.
So,
He really did.
yeah, so somebody else wrote the poem and he said, "Yeah, here, we'll use this cantiga," which was not this one, it's a different one.
Very creative use of groaning in multiple voices. Robian knows his stuff.
So what is this? What is it?
So this is Cantiga. I think this is a fiddle right here. Does it sound like a fiddle? I think it's their fiddle.
Yeah, some sort of fiddle.
Yeah. I know they have a flute and they've got a portive organ, little tiny. I don't know exactly where it is, but you can hear in the solo from the little organ, because she's got to be pumping the bellows with one hand while she's playing it with the other hand, and so It's a very distinctive improv style because those long phrases that you can do with a flute or a violin, fiddle, viol kind of thing. There we go. Do it.
So you just have, that's where the Hawkins comes from. Organ, organ.
Really different.
That's cool. That's definitely a jazz take.
And drum solo.
He really out for Robbie, that's way too 20th century jazz. Nice.
Yes. All right. But moving on, we'll do a little bit of Adam de la Hala. Here he is right here. Here's Adam. He wrote lots of motets, but what he's really most famous for writing now, I think, is this Jeu de Robin et de Marion, which is the precursor of the comic opera, in which Robin and Marion are shepherd and shepherdess, and they go through all this drubbing. And this is, in this particular song, Marion is tending to her sheep, singing about how much Robin loves her, when along comes the knight Aubert and tries to woo her away from him. And she says, "No! Robin loves me, and I love Robin, and I will stay true to him." That's what's going on there.
This one, Robin Marion's, where it's all nice, and just I'm not going to do what you want, or is it one of the Robin Marions where he tries to take her by force?
This might be the part where Robin. I'm trying to remember now. I'm sorry. It might be one of the ones where Robin has to come up and rescue her. Yeah, because he would just that night.
Sometimes it's just no, and sometimes it's like I'm going to do this to you.
Yeah.
This is not where Robin was dancing, wasn't he, with his friends?
Probably. Robin is off dancing with his friends.
This was a very popular genre, but it kind of dates back into what they call the pastourelle, which is, I was riding along one day and I saw this shepherdess, and so I said, "Ooh, baby, baby." And sometimes he succeeds, and sometimes she tells him to go away. And when he succeeds, right, but on the succeed one, sometimes she says no, and then he does it anyway, and then she says, "Okay, that was fun, thanks." Again, which I really don't believe, but this guy's writing it, so,
No, yeah, the men are writing it, so that's what they want to
That's
believe.
what they want to believe, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, because when I do my secular monophonic overview class, I also do Piece of Robin, which is another Robin and Marion.
But, I mean, Margaret is, I think, the first extant pastoral in that story, but some of the Montpellier motets, which you're doing, is that same storyline.
This is the night. Yes.
Oh. He doesn't sound very courtly.
No, he doesn't.
Marshall.
He's Marshall. I am a bandit knight. You must want me.
Yeah.
I think that's the general idea.
Yeah, I'm sure, yeah.
Gaston from Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
You get me.
But that's kind of a new concept, isn't it? Having a play where you
It
have
is.
parts and
Yeah, it is.
everything?
That's
I
why
mean,
it's a
the
precursor.
moment you got a woman singing and then a man singing, and they're telling the story. It's not one person telling the story. Oh my gosh.
I know, more than one person.
Wow.
Yes. Concept, stringing the songs together to tell a story. This is a new concept coming up here. So now we come on. I know I promised you motets. We are finally coming to the motets here. Yay! There's not room for enough motets. I'm sorry, but
We can sing this one.
we could sing this one. This is one
We should all know this one.
because this is one that I learned. This is I'm going to play Ale Salate from the Montpellier Codex. The Montpellier Codex is our big treasure trove of motets. There are 320 of them. You see that right? There's 336. 336 is what it said. So some of them are in French, some of them are in Latin, some of them are Latin and French mixed, although not as many of those. And some of them are secular, some of them are religious. This one is a religious, but not meant to be performed in church one. Fresh Strawberries is another motet I've heard of from this.
The Anonymous for Love's Illusion is a really nice recording.
Yeah.
Well, but
Yeah,
it
it's
starts to
some
sound
other.
all the same since it's just the instruments is nice.
Yeah, I like this one. I think the next one I chose. The next motet is going to be from the Bamberg Codex, which is 1260, 1290. That has 100 motets in it, so not quite as big, but still lots. My sources tell me that their notation is a little bit more advanced in that. But that's right here, so you can make up your mind for yourself and see if you think the notation is more advanced. I think that's it. Hopefully.
Oh wait, is that this one?
I think it's this one here.
Oh,
I think
okay.
so.
Could be.
Some of them I lost track of. I'm sorry. I had notes and then I took out the notes in my notes because I didn't need the notes to do the talk, and then I thought they were in order. Well, I thought they were in order, and I thought that most of them had the notes from where they were printed out on the page, but some of them didn't. And I didn't have them with me at the time to look at them. So we don't know that they performed the motets with instruments, but I like playing them for you with the instruments and not just purely vocal because for me it makes it a lot easier to tell the parts apart from each other. And that you can hear this. Oh, I had a nice quote for you about the motet from Period, about the audience for the motet. The motet should not be propagated among the vulgar since they do not understand its subtlety, nor do they delight in hearing it, but it should be performed for the learned and those who seek after the subtleties of the arts. And it is normally performed in their feasts for their beautification. And that's Johannes de Grocheo.
Oh, Rochelle.
That's what it says.
Interesting.
Oh, I didn't know these were performed at feast. I kind of thought maybe in church.
I would. No, I don't know. So, but these motets are more than my tiny brain can understand. The subtlety of the interplay between the words that look completely unrelated, but they are supposed to have subtle interplay between the two parts of the words, and then the music to the words. They're deep. They're really deep. So, this is the Bamberg Codex. And the Bamberg Codex also, in addition to those 100 motets, has 2 different theory treatises smushed in at the end.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I don't know what those are, but that's what it says.
Question.
Yes.
Have you researched into vocal delivery style of the period?
I have not specifically, but I have thought about it because we know so much about the changes in vocal styles just in the last century. Now, I tried to show, switching centuries radically, a few months ago I tried to show my daughter the Walt Disney Snow White.
Oh, wow.
That her voice does not sound pretty to us anymore. It's changed radically, and we also know like the Sacred Harp style singing, where you're singing through your nose. It's very different. Oh no, you really are. You really are.
Yeah, it's very musical.
Yeah, it's
Well, what's interesting to me is we've been referencing Bugler Taurus.
yes.
Okay, well, I know those guys.
I do too.
And I can't pull his name out, but the guy who's the head of that
Barry
art
Eversole,
class.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the modern
thank you.
name.
Yeah, well, I only knew his SEA name
I
anyway.
don't remember his name.
Um,
At the moment.
I should know it.
He taught a class many years ago that I took, that was fabulous. And he had good reason. He's an ethnomusicologist.
Yes.
I think we should do more ethnomusicology.
And he had good reason for saying that about this time period, the vocal delivery, in many places, and it wasn't the same everywhere, of course. And the flourishes and styles were the same everywhere, but a lot of it would have been this much more nasal
Yeah.
that you hear nowadays in folk areas.
Right. Which makes sense because the instruments too have that same nasal quality, and it makes
Quality,
sense
very reading.
that the vocal quality.
If you can read Tim McGee's The Sound
yes.
of Medieval Song. Like I said, it's like reading someone's doctoral dissertation, very dense.
Probably was
But
originally.
because he went and read all those treatises, and there were like some, and he compared different areas and time periods, and like some people would say, well, our style sounds wonderful, but those guys over there on the other side of the mountain, oh, they sound like donkeys. You know, and of course, it was, everybody always liked their style and thought everyone else's style sucked, but it does mean that there's regional variances.
Obviously.
But
Right.
but when you're just describing in words how something sounds, you really can't say what that sound really was.
Right.
That's kind of the problem.
Right.
But I think looking at music from different areas, listen to the Bulgarian stuff, or
Yeah.
you know, or listen. I mean, there's so many different
Yep.
little ethnic stuff that we don't expose ourselves to, and we could. And maybe one of those styles. I mean, nobody can say what's right or wrong, so you can try different things. But I think back in college, somebody had a recording in Columbia, Iowa, where the woman sounded like a crumb when she was singing.
Yes.
Really
Yes.
painful. Have you heard that one?
No, I haven't heard that one, but that sort of delivery.
Yeah, and it was just
Yeah.
like, you're like, okay, sure, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah,
used to-
but
Actually, I was listening on the radio recently and got something from Jewish holidays, and the announcer said, the most popular singer, and it's a woman, and it's this really direct nasal delivery. I mean, it sounded nice,
okay.
but you have to get used to it sometimes.
I used to do this for the Sing of Our Singers when we were practicing our Christmas carols. I say like, and this is the recording we have of this song. Now the holly bears a berry. It sounds like this. Now the holly bears a berry as white as the milk,
Yep.
and Mary bore Jesus, who was wrapped up in silk.
Yep.
That's really
Wow.
yeah.
Yep.
So, but we'll move on now with our motets to Petrus de Cruz, another famous composer of motets, and also the theoretician I mentioned earlier, who came up with the dots to divide the
Oh, yeah.
divide the. Come on, wait. So this is a 1978 take on.
Oh, early music concerts.
Yeah, the early music concert. So an early take on reconstructing.
It just occurs to me that this vocal style has become the accepted norm for early music, but that's just because these were the seminal early music recordings.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with anything. Yes.
No.
Yeah, it was just they thought, let's
Yes.
do a slightly different vocal sound since it's a different style of music. And now we assume that this is the way it's supposed to sound, but we don't actually know that that's true.
It's like modern people think that chant should sound the way the French monks at Salem do it, and they just
Right.
made it up.
Yeah, that's true, they did.
And they simplified it, they took out all of the because there's a sacred bridge recording where some of the song tones carried over from the Jewish, so there's a cantor singing it as it would be sung. And then there's a non-Jewish person singing the Christian version, and all of the ornamentation is
Sure. Yep.
That's a fascinating recording.
What's the name of that recording?
The sacred bridge.
Oh, that one. Yeah. Joel Cohen? That's where I had that. I didn't know it was from that recording.
More advanced. I'm going to show this to you because I don't remember anymore what this is. But it's really cool. It's stitched together. It was one of the pieces I was playing. I remember quite distinctly. I looked up the piece that I was playing. So Minnie's better at reading and trying to figure out which one it is. It's almost done. one more piece after this, officially. Are you in a hurry? Do you want me to skip, or do you want to listen to the end of this
Let's hear the vulgus before the
Okay.
ambient background noise gets too loud. We'll hear
Okay.
what in the last note.
So this is moving to the very end of the century, 1300, Las Huelgas Codex.
Yay.
Spain, northern Spain. This was created and found, still kept in the same Cistercian convent. And so it was written for the women there. And what's really fascinating, according to my notes, my sources tell me, that at that point, women were not supposed to be singing polyphony in church. But here we have polyphony, written clearly for women to be singing in their church. What does this mean? I don't know, but I thought that was interesting.
Oh, cool.
And the manuscript has 45 monophonic pieces and 141 polyphonic pieces.
Wow.
So it's a good, we should sing more from there. It probably has a lot of good stuff that we don't hear as much.
Well, it's hard to find stuff for women's voices from here too, and so that would be a really nice resource. I know it's easier for us to find women singers than male singers are choir and stuff. So.
Yeah.
I didn't know there were that many pieces in Las Vegas. That's a lot of songs. You can't fit them all on one record then, like
No.
you can Newport Vermel or Martin Kodash when they got space and I have to put something else in.
Somewhere in Ohio, there is an academic library which has a published edition of the Lotus manuscript.
Ooh.
I've had it in my hands, which is
Oh, you
why
mean
I
like
did that.
a color facsimile?
It's actually 3 volumes.
Ooh.
There's a facsimile, and there's a translation into modern English.
Oh, okay. And then all the notes on it.